Poor Derrick Rose. Could have been so great. Young MVP, all the potential in the world. Somewhat injury prone, goes down with the knee injury, ACL, takes so long to return, and here he is again, reports that he tore his ACL again. Non-contact injury. It's really sad. Hard to watch. Brandon Roy, Penny Hardaway, these are names that come to mind when we think of Derrick Rose. So what happened? Was this preventable? Well, I think Derrick is a sad but important lesson to many players at all levels aspiring to be the greatest they can be. And I think there is a lesson to be learned here, and that lesson is in potentially landing. Landing is my specialty. It's the thing that I obsess over on the internet that no one else does, so I figured I would talk about it because before Derrick Rose's first ACL tear, I had been meaning to make a video about how bad his landings were. Had the ACL tear, still didn't make it. And now we're back here again with another non-contact knee injury, and here I am analyzing his landings. First thing to talk about are, why are landings important? What do they have to do with injury? Well, let's talk about a concept of injury, and the idea that it is an accumulation, and in basketball it's often an accumulation of ground impacts, right? When you have a bad or improper landing, your knee might not explode then, your ankle might not explode then, but you're having micro trauma in your body, and that accrues and accumulates over time as it there's a little micro tears and such. So that knee pain, that dull knee pain you may have that's totally unexplainable, may just have to do with an accumulation of landings that you don't even notice any kind of pain at the time. Jumper's knee, or lander's knee as you should call it. Makes sense? So let's talk about what makes a good landing and why Derrick Rose is so bad at it. And he really is pretty bad at it. Like, he's great, he's incredibly bouncy going up, but look at this right knee. He's incredibly brick-like in landing. It's really bizarre that he could get that good at that, and no one, he never learns to get really agile at landing. Obviously, I cherry-picked some of the worst landings I could find, but it wasn't that hard. His vertical landings are really bad. His run-through landings off of 1 foot are okay. But I mean, okay, so what makes a good landing? First thing is the eye test, because we don't have access to sound. The eye test, it should be obvious. It shouldn't be obvious when you hit the ground, because a landing should be a transition. It should be gradual. So with Derrick, with these really stiff landings, when you look at the upper body, isolate the upper body, it shouldn't be obvious when you hit the ground, as it's a transition, if that makes sense. But if we look at Derrick's upper body only, it's obvious. And maybe more important is the sound test, which we don't have access to. Loud landing is a bad landing. Why? Because what is noise? It's impact. So, I mean, we can look at these and extrapolate the noise, right? But, I mean, we can tell that these aren't necessarily quiet landings. Finally, we have the idea of a bouncy ball versus a brick. A bouncy ball lands in stages. A brick lands in one motion, right? And what has more bounce life? A bouncy ball that bounces, or a brick that hits the ground and stops? We have a brick that hits the ground, it's loud, it's obvious when it hits the ground, because it just stops abruptly. And that's kind of what we have with Derrick. He doesn't continue his landings. Vertically, he's not good at getting depth. Squatting, I don't know, landing's an afterthought for this high-flying dunker, and he's paying the price. So, I know it's not the most scientific analysis of what makes a good landing, but you can look for yourself and see, based on the sound test, the visual test, the bouncy ball versus brick test, Derrick's not good at landing. What does that mean? It leads to injury, accumulation over time, not necessarily sprains, not necessarily knee blowouts, but maybe it weakens his body as there's micro trauma, and it can result in non-contact blowouts over time where your knee just gives out. Could be that this is the cause, could be it's not the cause. It's definitely a factor. And if you have the question, all right, how am I supposed to land then? How should Derrick land then? Well, I've got a video on Dwayne Wade, which you guys can check out, how Dwayne Wade lands. Dwayne Wade is a high flyer in his 30s, future MVP, 3 rings. He's great at landing, so I have a video on that. I'm working on a video on how Kobe lands. Kobe is a great lander. No concerns for him, obviously, as he's, I mean, he has his Achilles tear, but he's doing great at an extended age. I'll tell you, LeBron has pretty solid landings, so I think he has a nice future as well. We can continue to see him, but I think this is a lesson for everyone, and it's at Derrick's expense. He has not that much potential anymore. I mean, serious ligament damage to both knees. It's just like at a young age. I mean, he's had a great career up to this point, so. You know, he did a lot, but I think this is a lesson, and I think it's a lesson in landing as well. Landing is really not something most people pay attention to. It's something that I pay attention to, and hopefully this maybe gets a little more light on it and gets more people landing focused on being the bouncy ball, focused on continuing their force, whether they're spinning, whether they're running, whether they're coming straight down, squatting, and so forth. So, sorry, Derrick, wish you the best, but I think we know why this has happened. So, peace out, everyone. Hope this helps you guys save your knees and sheds a little light on what's going on with Derrick.